It's a pretty exciting time, actually. There's new formats. There's new ways to integrate into in and around content, and there's pressure on brands to probably think about how they can activate, power, and maybe enable some of the content that they play in and around. So, we're doing pretty exciting things for some of our clients in a lot of spaces, in maybe linear TV, where the brands are playing a bigger role than they ever have, and in some new formats like, 6-second units. How can we use those to do more than just run-in content? How do we use that time to maybe give more of the show or the content back to the people, to the consumers? So there's lots of interesting opportunities and ways to play.
So yeah, in linear, just touch on that a little bit. I know there's talk about less ad load, the 6-second units, as
Yep.
you mentioned. What's happening in terms of linear and ad load or ad choice, or how are networks changing, and sort of what's your view on that?
I think it's a more interesting time to think about what brands can do in the linear space. We have an opportunity to kind of rethink the 30-second spot, right? Whether we think about it in terms of unit length and the format, or whether we think about it in terms of how the brands actually play in the content themselves. That can be integrations, that can be experiences that brands are creating on behalf of some of the partners and publishers. So lots of new things.
So tell us about this whole notion of addressable TV or targeted advertising, one-to-one advertising. We hear a lot of talk about it. Certainly your group has done a lot of innovative work in that area.
Yeah.
What's exciting around targeted advertising, particularly as it relates to video content? What would you say to that?
The space is getting smarter. Brands are putting more pressure on agencies, on partners, and channels to be targeted in everything we do. It's a fine line or a balance we have to strike between scale and targeting, and where to do both appropriately.
So how do you, I know there's not one formula, but what's exciting about targeting and what's limiting about it, and sort of how do you assess the balance between targeting and more broader marketing spend?
I think, as an industry right now, we're talking about it as scale versus targeting, as growth versus ROI, as brand versus demand. And the reality is it's not an either or. We need both. Brands need scale. They need to grow. They need bigger audiences to grow. They need time and longer term, initiatives to do that. There's also a lot of pressure on brands and companies right now to deliver on ROI pretty quickly. So, it's about striking the right balance between those two. How do we live in a world where we do both? And how do we not sacrifice one for the other?
So what about performance? What are your brands looking for now that might have changed, and what are the tools available around performance?
There's so many tools, right? We have more data at our fingertips than we could ever imagine. Most brands, most media partners, most agencies have so much technology to empower more targeting and more data-enabled activity and reach. I think the trick is how do we do it in a way that matters, right? What do consumers care about? What do they want? I think the rest can be the industry talking to itself.
And finally, with the upfronts coming and the new fronts, what's exciting to you about TV, premium video opportunities that you sort of that you're looking forward to seeing, or you hope develop, or that you're keen about right now?
I think at a time when there's more content that people love watching than ever, when there is more pressure on us as agency partners to think about new ways for brands to play in and around that content, and at a time when there's interesting business context happening in the landscape of some of our biggest partners, it's a really exciting time to think about the right strategy and the right approach.